give a talk. No. Uh, so normally I'm not comfortable talking, even though I know I'm a teacher, but that's a little bit different. So what I thought I'd share, because I happen to have it, and so I told no, yes, I do have something. And what this is I belong to another Sangha, rather interesting. It's actually a Zen Sangha, and it's led by a Jesuit priest who is a Roshi. And so that fascinates me. And so they asked me to do what's called words of encouragement, but it's only a very, they wanted short because it was during their weekday. And actually, in order to do it, it's 7 a.m. on the Eastern Coast. And for me, it's 4 in the morning. And so, but I decided, but I thought I'd simply try it with you all because the rule is you can talk about whatever you want. I am not that strong a Buddhist. I admire everybody in this group. I feel I'm still really a beginner. I'm very new to it. And what I do at Elmwood Center is pretty much, I keep it secular, and I do mindfulness meditation. And I purposely, they've actually asked us to kind of keep it that way. So I'm going to read what I have, and we'll see. Okay. And I do an 8-week course in meditation that I have named the Kindness Project. And whenever I recruit for a new cohort, I advertise the benefits listed on a handout I use, which includes sleeping sounder, easing pain, reducing anxiety, and healing faster. The appeal for some are many of these benefits, even as I know that some men just want another certificate of attendance to show the courts, and others welcome the chance to get away from their units. And then there are those who genuinely are seeking the goals that I list on my application form, which are greater self-understanding, the tools to manage life, and especially a greater sense of inner peace. And that's what I list. So in the first class, and there are 8 classes, each class is about 2.5 hours, because as a teacher, I use a lot of tools. I use films, I use all kinds of activities. And then of course, some of it is introducing meditation and then actually meditating, but not for that long. They tend to be beginners. So in the first class, I play a CD by an Australian monk who studied in Thailand under the Venerable Ajahn Chah. The title of the recording is Why Meditate? In it, Ajahn Munindo describes when a representative from Sweden sent to Thailand to research meditation for their health system asked Ajahn Chah, why do you meditate? His answer was a question in return. Why do you eat? The next question was, how do you feel when you meditate? Ajahn Chah's answer was, how do you feel when you eat? In other words, the metaphor of hunger was Ajahn Chah's concise, simple answer. There is a natural yearning within and a desire for fulfillment, just as when we eat and we feel a fullness. And then on the CD, Ajahn Munindo adds that this hunger comes not from the head, but the heart, even if we don't know exactly what the heart is. As in Zen, thinking things out and analyzing is not the path to getting you there. It is by paying attention to our intuition and hearts. A certain feeling arises by which truth comes to us. However, much empirical research will say that this is too subjective. And as he states it, the light of attention has to be reversed from shining on what is outside to what is within. And this shift in perspective helps us to discover that there is so much more to ourselves. He says there, in quotes, there's an intuitive recognition that gives the body, mind, a feeling of fullness. Right? Also, he adds, we are born with questions such as, what is death? And what is love? And what's important in life? And also with doubts. In meditation, we encounter these uncertainties, and once in a while, the light goes on. His example of being at a friend's house, stumbling in the dark to use the bathroom and trying to find a light switch, and then finding it is, to me, very apt. Things literally get, in quotes, enlightened, but with a small e. So, back to my first class session in which I have a new group of students, and I use this Why Meditate CD and the idea of hunger to hopefully hook them into completing the whole course, and also to start them on a path of self-reflection and focusing, not at first on their breath, but on the words from a CD player telling them their minds may well wander, but to note when it does, if they can, and to come back to listening. I tell them, in quotes, meditation is simple, but not easy. To lay the groundwork for their having to put in effort. Moreover, whereas they have lost so much freedom, where they will be housed and what and when they eat and who they live with, and what they can receive in the mail are all outside their control. So I stress that one thing they can be masters of is their own minds and hearts. But it does take some training and practice. I tell them at first when they try meditation, they are like passengers in a car and they have no control where they go. With focus and practice, they can become the drivers. They broke some law, but there are no laws against the pause to go inside where shadows hide. And once they grasp this, they have choice. And to get them started and having control over something in their lives, I give them their first homework assignment, which I give them on small pieces of paper. I give them journals, right? And so this is the first assignment. It's the week 1 prompt. In your journals, write what you hunger for in each of the 5 categories: intellectually, spiritually, physically, emotionally, and socially. And then I say, for example, they might write, physically, I hunger for ... or emotionally, I hunger for, right? And then I wait and see what I get. And hopefully I'm encouraging them, because of the CD, that I want them to go inside and see what they really want. Have they ever thought about it? So there was a particular class, and normally the answers they're relatively brief. And the main goal for me is just to get them used to going inside to reflect. However, there was one student whose answer went deeper than usual, and I think touches on the hunger brought up in the CD, and it really impressed me. And I asked him permission if I could share it with other people, because it was quite amazing. All right, and so I'm going to read to you, and he entitled it, What I Yearn For. Of course, it was handed in, he had in a, written on his journal, and then I asked him if he would rewrite it for me, and then of course it was handwritten, and then I typed it up for him. And I shared it, we shared it with the whole group. So this is what he wrote. Intellectually, I yearn for more. I never want to stop learning. Spiritually, I yearn for connectivity with everyone and everything. Physically, I yearn for longevity. I'm eating healthier and exercising so my time on earth with my family, and my journey to get closer to God isn't cut short because of physical neglect. And then fourth, emotionally, I yearn for a deep-seated connection with my inner self, emotional control that I believe can only come from a complete understanding of myself. The ability to, in quotes, let loose without letting go when I recognize that it's time to take a break. And the emotional strength to truly love everyone unconditionally and irrevocably. And then last, he wrote, socially, I yearn for the ability to thrive in society without having to adapt to what people are comfortable with. I yearn to be a part of a society that applauds individuality and individualism, a society that praises diversity through adversity and recognizes the exceptional strength, determination, and fearlessness it took to do so. I yearn for the day when I can be seen as an intricate story yet to be told, rather than a story people assume they've already heard because of common social convention and my skin color or their stereotypes. And above all, I am me, and I yearn for the day when I can meet someone for the first time, and that is the truth that they see. And this really blew my mind. I didn't expect something like this. And so there is a saying that I often use. I use it with them. When the student is ready, you know this one, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And this person happened to arrive in the class at a very critical time for him. It was his third strike situation, and it had him facing 25 years to life. The outcome, actually, say a little bit more, he took my class, it was 4 years ago, he took it, the 8 weeks takes place over 2 months. He took my class, and then later on, I took a break, I came back and I offered the same class in the same unit, and he happened to be the only one left, he was still there. So I asked him to assist in the class, all right? And then when I came back, I found out a lot more about what happened in between and a little bit more about him. So what happened was the outcome from him turned out to be amazingly positive. And I like to think it was because he was ready to go inside through meditation. And so sometimes hitting bottom is the jolt that sparks transformation. And I would say he was happened to be ready. And I often tell people who come to my class, because I expect attrition, I expect people to drop out, oh, this isn't for me and that. And I try to encourage them to stay on. And I tell them that maybe they're not ready for what I'm doing, because maybe even a different teacher would be better. And so to kind of finish, when all this was going on for me, I have been thinking myself about how the idea of yearning applies to myself. Years ago, in my late 20s, I kept getting drawn to the idea of a meditation practice, but I didn't have much exposure to one, but I heard about it. And it didn't gel until I signed onto a course. It was a course that took me to India and was called Inward Bound. I don't know if you're familiar with something called Outward Bound. And so this was called Inward Bound India. And so that was 22 years ago. And so I'm grateful that, especially here in California, having moved here just 7 years ago, that such a hunger, and I think there is in us a yearning, a hunger for something like this. And in California, it is the place to be if you want to be a meditator. There's so much here. And so, and also the food metaphor is very, very apt for me. And that's what struck me about this CD that I use. Because in my work, I see myself as nourishing people. Even my dissertation has the food analogy in there. That's just where I come from. And also, I feel that I'm watering seeds that are in them. I used to say I'm trying to plant seeds, but I've decided no, there's Buddha nature in them. The seeds are already there, that I'm just watering them so that they can bloom. And so also when I sit on my cushion, the word delicious, and I've told this to the men, that, I hope it happens for them, but when I sit down, I just think this is delicious. Right. And so, and that fullness keeps me going. And so, so I also want to read something else because I have more time. The other time I only had the 10 minutes. So I also want to read one more essay that he wrote that I didn't get a chance to share. I haven't shared it with a lot of people, but just to tell you a little bit more about him. After he ended the first 8-week series, he came to me and he said, "Do you know what? I have to tell you, you saved my life." I thought, what? How can I save his life? And he said, he was right when the class started, he was about to commit suicide. And he had already informed some people, given them, done some things in preparation. And so I want to read you the essay that he wrote in response to another homework assignment. And that assignment is, I have a theme for each of the classes, and I think it's about the 5th class. The theme is gratefulness. And so the homework assignment is, I want you to think about a time when you hit life, you hit the bottom, everything fell out for you. And you're asking everybody, why me? You're telling God, why are you doing this to me? And you're really hitting bottom. And I said, but you came through it and now you're grateful. And I don't know what I'm going to get, but sometimes I get something quite amazing. So I think in addition, since I have time, I'm going to read you what he wrote. And again, I have his permission to share it with other people. He called it Breaking Through Despair. He said, facing 25 to life is an experience I wouldn't wish on anyone. It broke me. It had me on the verge of suicide. Every true friend I believed I had stopped answering my calls and responding to my letters without so much as a goodbye. It broke me ever further as I considered the things I may never have, a chance to experience what I took for granted while I still had the opportunity to. And as if the pieces of me weren't small enough already, it completely shattered me as I thought of whether or not I would ever see my children again. I had never been so broken. I truly lost all hope. Then, after days of contemplating suicide, I awoke one morning to a strange feeling. Something subtle yet powerful, like a rose blooming through cracked cement. Something I didn't understand at the time and nearly rejected because it seemed so foreign amongst all of the negativity. And he wrote, hope. It started as something barely noticeable, but the more I embraced it, the more it would blossom. And it continued to blossom until it was so grand that it completely engulfed the despair it arose through and replaced it with something so intricate and beautiful that no words could truly describe it. I stand before you today the strongest person I've ever been, not because my life is easy, but because it is harder than it has ever been. And because as I walk through the cold, heartless rain, I learn to truly appreciate sunshine and the strength that can only come from withstanding a storm. And so that was his homework. And I was so impressed by his writing. I actually looked him up. I do collect some data, for instance, what was their highest level of education? And he dropped out of high school at age 16. And I was just blown away. And so, I want to finish this with thoughts that I have. What I finished, what come to my mind was, I have myself a persistent question, which is, and you can possibly, all of you can help me answer this. Is it possible that all my yearning to go on long retreats, I love the 10-day court, 10-day retreats, the Vipassana ones. It's not that I'm being drawn, but is it an escape from the aversions in my life? I once told someone that when things get tough, I would love to disappear for a while with little responsibility and just sit on my mat. Might I actually be clinging to the peace and fullness of meditation while avoiding or putting off pain? And so, so that's what I want to end with. And I will add a little bit more. I haven't written it, but the second series that this fellow took, he told me the second last class, he said, I'm going to court, I'm seeing the judge. And because of what he had written and something else that happened in the class that really impressed me, it was a total act of generosity on his part. So I decided to write a letter for him, which once in a while I'll do it, just a letter of saying he's attended the course and this is how he participated. I'll do this once in a while. And so he came back the very last day and he said, I went to court. And there was one line in what he wrote, and you could probably guess what it was. He said there was one line the judge had trouble with. And I told him, I think I know what it was, when he said, socially, I yearn for the ability to thrive in society without having to adapt to what people are comfortable with. And the judge, called him on that. And I don't know what he answered. So then he said, so I have to tell you what the decision was. And the judge gave him 3 more weeks. And that's what he ended up with. It just blew me. And so, so I just want to share, once in a while when you're doing this work, I would say there's 10% where you get feedback that, that somebody's being helped. And for me, the funny, well, I don't say funny, but that's the system. They actually sent him way down to a prison near, I think it was near Los Angeles, like 7 hours away to serve out his 3 more weeks. And then of course then they had to, get him back up here because he's from, Santa Clara County, which is where Elmwood is. So that's what I'd like to share is, I am interested in everybody, what brings people to meditation? Because I don't have it, I didn't have it in my family or anything. And I did grow up Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I sort of say that I've outgrown it, but I'm very pleased that I did find this Sangha that is mostly Catholic, and it's led by a Jesuit priest. And so that kind of thrills me. So and also I always have this question is, sometimes I see people attending lots and lots of retreats, and sometimes I think, if I weren't married, maybe I'd be doing the same thing, because man, I could have peace and calm a lot more often and get out of my community where there's sometimes a lot of stuff going on. So thank you.